Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to the next part of the Eternal set review for Dark Frontier with part 2 of the Shadow cards. And before we move on to the second part of the Shadow cards, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content. And now on to the cards. Alright, so first we have Ollie, Maniacal Grave Robber. Kind of a funny name, even like this short nickname version of a regular name for a maniacal grave robber. The card kind of makes me laugh every time I read it. Just pretty funny. It seems like out of a comedy. But yeah, anyway, to the card. For constructed, the card is falling a bit short. 1 toughness is very problematic. The deadly quick draw actually makes it quite a nice 2-drop. Like, it's really annoying to block. It's in a way better than Ripknife Assassin. The 1 health is still pretty lackluster, unfortunately. And I mean, you get the added bonus of shift 4, and when one of your other units dies while Ollie is shifted, give it void bound and Ollie gets its attack and health. So it's actually a fairly powerful yet situational shift there that can be quite punishing in certain situations. So the card's actually kind of powerful. It just has slightly too many shortcomings in addition to being double shadow, I think, to make it in constructed, which is a bit unfortunate because the card has a nice package deal otherwise. In limited, this is an amazing card and even better than it seems, because if it didn't have the shift it would be much harder to play, but by the time you shift it, double shadow is not a problem, so if you can't play it on 2, you just shift it later, no problem. Very powerful 2-drop in limited, I would say. Next we have Stained Horror. This card's mostly pretty irrelevant in constructed, except for one thing. With Quill and Katra, you have a pretty nice infinite combo that just wins the game. So that's the main purpose of the card in constructed, really. And there's a couple of ways of treating that into play or trying to implement it into an otherwise sort of real game plan, which is pretty nice. And people have messed around with it yet. Nobody has broken it. I'm not sure if it can be broken, but there might be a potential to find like the right deck that can just run that package and benefit from it without warping itself too much around it and then losing to like the kind of typical interaction that you would expect, like fast removal and stuff. And yeah, in limited, I mean, it's a 2-cost 1/3, can only be so bad. If you have a bunch of nice twist abilities that benefit from this, it seems like a fine addition. Otherwise, probably not, since the 2-cost 1/3 is below the curve. Next we have, the cheap marginal Shadow Warp card. In this case it costs 2, and it gives all your units +1 attack this turn, which is pretty marginal and yeah, also kind of surprising for Shadow, because that's more of a fire thing. But I guess it is what it is. Unplayable in constructed. Maybe okay as a filler in limited, but not exciting by any means. Next we have Vizier's Tablet. It's a 2-cost relic, and you can pay 3 to discard the top card of the enemy deck, and if it was a unit you gain 1 health. So the problem is, this mills way too little, way too slow, and is way too expensive to do so, and the fact that you occasionally gain a health doesn't remotely make up for it, so this card is, in my opinion, super unplayable in either of the formats. Next we have Crooked Elegite, the Shadow Shift 1 card. Quite a solid one here for limited, not good enough for constructed, but in limited, a shift 1 scout and then get a 3/2 by turn 4 that can attack immediately and is unblockable. Seems like a pretty solid deal, so I'm happy to pick these up in limited. Next we have Darkweave Enchantress, another card that seems very unplayable in constructed, but in limited, while a bit slow, seems pretty good. A 4 toughness blocker for 3 usually means it can block something without dying, and then on turn 5 with 5 power you can start twisting this to cripple opposing units and suddenly turn this into like a deadly threat that trades with stuff. So all in all, not super exciting, but a decent card, I guess, in limited, especially if you have ways to buff it, like especially the toughness and the health. Next we have Death Ripple. In constructed this is a bit too situational and a bit too expensive, but in limited this actually seems amazing. You can kill a fair share of annoying units, especially flyers that aren't super expensive, and you are more likely to have one or even maybe two shifted units. And even if you only have one shifted unit, giving it +2 attack permanently in addition to killing a unit is pretty powerful, so I quite like this card in Limited. Next we have Gorgon Cutthroat. Has 3 cost, 2/2 ambush, not particularly impressive, and when it blocks it deals 2 damage to you, making it even worse since without trading it can only ambush like 1 attack units. This card seems horrible even in Limited by any standard really. Next we have Lethrai Dire Beast. Has 3 cost, 3/3 lifesteal, which is a very solid deal. We had this with Reckless before and even that was already solid. This doesn't have Reckless and comes with a decent shift for alternate. But yeah, I don't see how that you would shift this very often. Like in the super late game, if you have a big guy or evasive unit and want the lifesteal, I can see shifting this. But if you have it in your opening hand, I think you basically always want to play this on turn 3. But it's a very solid, like fine Limited card. Next we have Livia Hexweaver. Card's kinda cool. It's a 3 cost, 3/2 lifesteal. A bit small in stats for a 3-drop, but units with endurance can't block, so that's a nice bonus. That counts for Palace, counts for Sandstorm Titan. Those are the 2 common ones. To a lesser extent, like Hourglass out of some markets or Chthon. And another reasonably big one with the return of Praxis some more is Moonstone Vanguard. So there's a bunch of nice utility here, but I feel like all in all these things need to apply for her to be worth the investment of a card and power. And since they won't all the time, in the end I think she is kind of like not really likely to make it into decks, unfortunately. Would once again be a great sideboard card, so you can only have her when she's really good, and she's not good enough to put her in your market usually. So yeah, which means she's kind of left in an awkward space in Constructed where she's kind of good in the right situations, but not good enough to put in your market, and you don't have a sideboard. The Onslaught is another nice bonus, and clear like a bunch of Grenadines and stuff like that, or just multiple copies of the same unit or cripple them. It's all kind of nice, but the whole package is still needs to apply in a way to make the card good enough, and usually it's only part of the package that's going to be relevant to make up for the measly stats. In Limited, however, this seems like a pretty great 3-drop by any measure. Next we have Sinister Design. For 3 you sacrifice a unit to create and draw a 10/10 Sewer Kraken. So basically what you do is you throw away this card and a unit in play, and like the 3 power for this card and the power you played for the unit to get back a 10/10 for 7 that you can shift for 3. And if you shift it, it also like mills both players. That doesn't seem remotely great. So yeah, this card seems pretty bad. In Limited it might be worth the effort in the right deck, because the 10/10 can be pretty powerful, but in Constructed this is like not gonna make it anywhere. And last but not least we have Vishni Lethrai Highblood. A 3 cost 3/3 flyer alone is pretty solid in both formats. In Limited it's even great. And yeah, on Infiltrate you steal the enemy void. That won't matter much in Limited, but in Constructed it can be nice like fringe utility, and you can alternatively shift it for 6 or cheat it into play shifted otherwise to make 3/1 Dark Elves, but that's not that great either. So in the end, in Constructed, I don't see this card making it. It's like just a little bit too underwhelming on all fronts to make it, but in Limited this seems like a fairly great card, but for a legendary it's underwhelming in Limited, but it's still a pretty good card. But as like an uncommon or a rare it would be great. Sure, the quality of the card obviously in Limited doesn't change based on the rarity. It's just compared to what you usually would expect or get for Legendary a lot of the time, this is underwhelming, but it's still a good card. Alright, this was part 2 of the Shadow cards. We are getting closer to the end, and I'll try to wrap things up before I leave for my festival this weekend, so that we're done with the review. So stay tuned for part 3 later today, and hopefully the rest like tomorrow morning or something like that. As usual, hit the like button if you enjoy the content, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more. And yeah, one last request, please consider whitelisting eternaltitans.com and YouTube on your adblock, and check out the ads at the beginning and end of the videos to help support the free content we are putting out for you guys. Really appreciate that. And that's it again for this time. I'm your host ManuS. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with part 3. Bye.